This is a story of two franchises, one who sold and then, well, they didn't sell. The other started the sell movement, and they also didn't sell. They just moved. Let's just get into it today in a special crossover episode with Locked On A's and Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's and Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am the host of Locked On A's, Boney, and here is the Locked On Twins host, Brandon Warne, on a special crossover episode. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so do me a favor and punch the subscribe button wherever you are following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now. Brandon, how are you, sir?
We're doing all right over here. It's a little gloomy, a little doom and gloom, but you know, you got to have the darkest nights before you can see the brightest stars. And I think Twins fans are hoping that that's what's happening right now.
You guys may have the most drama going on besides the A's right now. It's actually a shock talking to another team with more drama than the A's right now. So tell me what's going on with the Twins and everything that's kind of rolled on the last week. They sold and then they didn't sell and the fans were happy and then they were pissed. Tell me what's going on with the Twins.
Yeah. So about, I don't know, maybe 9 months ago, the Pohlad family, which has owned the team since the mid-'80s, just before the Twins won their World Series, announced their intention to pursue sale of the team. And that kind of went back and forth. Not a lot of news, especially not after the Ishbia brother ended up buying into the White Sox as opposed to the Twins. And then you get to the deadline and there's just a bloodletting of epic proportions, something I don't think have seen ever in Major League Baseball. And then 2 weeks later, the Pohlad family say, oh, sorry, just kidding. We're sticking around. And we've taken on a couple of investors who are going to infuse us with some cash because the Twins are claiming $400 million in debt. The Pohlads, not the Twins, I should say. The Pohlads are claiming $400 million in debt. And so this is hopefully an infusion of cash so that they can get back to actually doing things in the off season, because the last two off seasons have been very, very muted.
Sure.
And to the dismay of everyone in Twins territory. And the culmination of that, though, was starting out of the gates very slow, having a 13-game winning streak and then falling back apart and gutting a big portion of the team. Now, it's not as much of the vital, integral parts of the Twins as maybe a lot of passive observers might think. But sure, it's still hard not to take notice when 40% of your active roster gets flipped on deadline day or in the days near that.
You know, what I don't understand, you mentioned a second ago, obviously the 13-game winning streak. You guys at one point were, right there in the wild card. Had 7 games over 500 when you visited the A's in June 4th in Sacramento. You guys won that game 6-1, put you guys to a record, I believe, 34-27, and haven't sniffed that close to 500, above 500 yet. What happened?
So since Sacramento, the Twins, after that series, have gone 24-38. Only 2 teams have been worse than the Twins. The Colorado Rockies, who should surprise nobody, and the Washington Nationals, who probably doesn't surprise anybody either. Meanwhile, the A's 32-30, I might add. But in that series, the Twins lost Pablo Lopez and Zebby Matthews. Now, Pablo is nearing a return. Zebby has been back and is throwing darts like he was before. Very fun, optimistic-looking young starter. But the heart and soul of the rotation is Pablo Lopez. You can make a case for Joe Ryan, too, but Joe Ryan went down last year with a similar injury. And so Pablo going down on that, we like to say, shoddy Sacramento mound. I don't know how many other people would ever have complained about it.
The whole world.
Yeah. So there's different theories for when this team has fallen apart. Last year in Texas, they fell apart and never have really been the same since I think it was last August, about a year ago today, even. But if there were to be a time this season that you would focus in on, Sacramento is kind of what broke this team. And I mean, everybody's got to pitch on the same mound. Everybody, no big deal. It's just that I think you can point to that Pablo Lopez going down and it being in Sacramento, where it was just kind of like everything went sideways from there. And they never.
And Joe Ryan complained about the mound too in game one, and Severino's complained about it all year. So I don't think that's isolated. You play every single. I mean, they're playing 7 days a week there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it. I mean, again, it's you complain about the weather, you complain about the conditions, you complain about the mound. Everybody's affected by the same thing. It's not like kicking into the wind in a football game where you alternate or anything. So it can be an obstacle, but it doesn't have to be a reason or an excuse. Right.
No, I hear you. What's the mood in the fan base right now? Is it furious? Is it is it going to be a time where we start hearing chanting of sell the team type deal? Is that what's going on?
More the fury was kind of limited to like the 10 to 12 days out of the deadline. The fire was stoked when they traded Chris Paddock, which started the whole thing. And actually they kicked the living daylights out of him on Sunday for the second time since he's been traded. So maybe he's giving it back to them. I don't know. But the fans were furious. It was a whole, this is what they took from us mentality and, just not happy. This was a team that was built in a way to win, and it wasn't winning, and they gutted it, but they went deep into the veins. And so the fury lasted, I'd say 10, 12, maybe even 2 weeks, but 10, 12 days. And I think we're getting close to apathy again, which is a very bad state for Twins fans to be, because you're looking at this team and there's plenty of guys on offense where you're like, okay, that guy could be a part of the future. But the bullpen right now is a mishmash of guys who probably don't have a future here. And that's where they traded the bulk of their depth from. And you don't need to build a team around a bullpen to be good, but that's the next thing is how do you build a bullpen? Who fits into the rotation? So there's a lot of apathy. And then I think just kind of like mystery around this team, because there's a lot of guys where it's like, oh, James Outman, who's James Outman outside of, he robbed Carlos Correa of a home run when the Twins were in Dodger Stadium a month ago. There's just a lot to process. And I think in some ways too, like the bases heads are collectively spinning still, but they're starting to calm down and people are kind of like, oh, Viking season starts soon. Let's just lock in for that.
Just 2 years ago, ALDS. How did it fall and how did it? I'll go one more. Just 2 years ago, ALDS, 13-game winning streak. How did it go down and just switch so fast? What was it? Ownership? Was it just a number of things of circumstances that just couldn't control? I mean, what happened?
I mean, where it comes back to ownership is that they did not take the next step to support the core they had in place. After 2023 financially, they pulled the rug out with a $30 million decrease in payroll. And say what you will about a front office having resourcefulness, building a contract like Carlos Correa's into your budget with the understanding that it won't be then sliced a year later is important. Yeah. And so they had to get creative, and they had to get cheaply creative with, like, this off season. It was Harrison Bader and Danny Coulombe, and the guys that they signed on a reasonably cheap dime did a nice job. But Carlos Correa had a really rough start to the year, and Byron Buxton has been phenomenal, but Royce Lewis has been either hurt or ineffective. The Twins were the worst team in MLB and still are with the bases loaded, and so they're just not coming up in big spots. Their high leverage relievers were phenomenal, but would give up just enough of damage in big spots that the offense wasn't coming back from. So just a cascade of unfortunate events kind of toppling on top of each other. But the foundation of it is they won that first playoff game. They won that first playoff series. They at least gave the Astros a bit of a challenge in 2023. And then ownership said, we've seen enough. We're not going to, they were claiming losses in other areas. And then I think they still are trying to point back to 2020 and lack of attendance and all that. But they pulled back, and it was the worst possible time. 19 years it had been since the team had won a playoff game. They gave the fans a taste of joy, and then they took it back. And now not only are they not selling the team, but they're keeping the team and probably here for the long haul.
These two franchises have a lot in common. Minnesota got their 2 World Series in 87 and 91. The A's got theirs in 89. A's have made the postseason 11 times since 2000. The Twins 10, but neither have really made any deep runs in the postseason. We have 2 fan bases. Well, A's really don't have a fan base anymore, but that are absolutely furious with the team and hate ownership with a passion. The only difference I would say is the Twin Stadium and brand new stadium in 2010, where, hey, we saw what the A's are playing in right now.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk about coming up next is, what do fans really want? Do they want your flashy free agents? Do they want you to sign the big names and sacrifice winning for that? Or is it about winning and spending less? Because I've kind of gone back and forth with this and love to get your take. Up next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. Personally, I cannot wait to see guys like Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers play and zeroing in on a couple of their over-unders like I did last season when I cashed. PrizePicks is the simple way to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used PrizePicks for a few seasons now and love how simple it is. I can get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you still doubled my money. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you first play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Brandon, I want to get into what fans really want. I've gone back and forth with the fan base on this. And here is what I want as a fan. And again, before starting to do this, I never really paid attention to much of the politics or ownership with regard to the team. For me, it was, hey, I did my work as far as my job and career, and then came home and every day watched 2.5 hours, 3 hours of the A's, and that was it. And as long as the team was competitive on the field, I was happy. And for the last 20-something years, with the exception of the last couple, the A's have done that. They've made it to the postseason 11 times. They've put together some of the most memorable seasons. And for me, I could care less about payroll, about retaining players and that sort of. Sure, are there players I wish we retained? Yeah, like Matt Olson, Matt Chapman. But looking at that right now, I'm like, it's probably a good move we let them go, considering what they would have cost. And, would we have drafted Nick Kurtz if we have Matt Olson on the roster? And fans are always saying spend, spend, spend. I ask always one further question. Okay, fair enough. Let's spend. Who do you want to replace and who do you want to get? Because I wish we didn't sign Jose Leclerc for $10 million, but we had to. Severino, we were going to force to pay a premium for that. 3 years, $66 million. I wish we would have separated it in different ways? Sure. Is he that type of pitcher? I think we all agree on no, but to participate in the revenue sharing, we had to. What do fans want at the end of the day?
From the Twins, I don't know that this ownership group can really do anything to save face. I think a new ownership group is a must. Now, with that said, what's the best thing that this ownership group can do to regain or at least placate the fans is, I think a goodwill move like an extension for Joe Ryan or Ryan Jeffers right now is something that would really go a long way toward at least kind of stemming the tide of angst that's washing ashore at Target Field. But beyond that, like foundationally, Twins fans want to not feel like they're the farm system for the rest of the league. And not because I think that that's actually really rooted in fact. The Twins have not really had anybody leave that they desperately wanted to keep in the last few years. But they want to keep their good players. They want to be able to sign a good player every now and then, basically be the St. Louis Cardinals, be the foundation of consistency, the model of consistency, not the Cardinals now, but the Cardinals 10, 15, 20 years into the past. And so they basically just want a sustainable team that's competitive and that every now and then breaks through and wins in October, which is not that much to ask for, if I can be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. The Twins have won, though, right? The Twins have won 10 times going into the postseason for a number of years. And they have retained just about all their players. Is this year kind of just is it a one-off, or has this been consistent for the Twins for a number of years? Because I can't really, when I look at the Twins, I don't look at a franchise I don't consider them in the same breath as the Pirates. I don't consider them in the same breath as as the Rockies, for example, not even close. I mean, for a while there, they were dominating that AL Central. What do you think? Is this a one-off, or?
I don't think I'm overstating that no team got less out of more talent this year than the Twins. No team that comes into the year with Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, and Royce Lewis should have ever had to consider any sort of sell-off. That's just their pillars.
Sure.
You have Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan at the top of your rotation, both tremendous starters. Bailey Ober coming off a really nice year. They got a bunch of interesting young guys. They had Chris Paddock, who is a decent 4-5 starter, nothing special, and then their bullpen was incredible. That level of talent should have been a 94-win team, win the AL Central, and have a chance in the postseason. And for whatever reason, every time the bases were loaded, Carlos Correa comes up, pops out to second, hits a rip-roaring 120-mile-an-hour grounder for a double play. Like, it was just the antithesis of a team that would come up in big spots. I'm not going to say clutch because I know the history of the A's and Moneyball. I don't want to say that they weren't clutch, but if you look at their numbers, like with bases loaded, it's historically bad. They never got the big hit when they needed it, and it just ended up being an average baseball team that's not enough to compete. And so they said, all right, well, we'll trade all these relievers who we don't believe have that much value in the first place. They got a bunch of prospects, bunch of interesting players. I think unless they trade Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez this offseason, which would be a terrible, terrible idea, they should just go for it again next year. You can find a bullpen. You know, you're obviously going to be somewhat familiar with Danny Coulomb. He was tremendous this year. Right. You can sign a couple interesting guys, a couple of your guys that don't make the rotation, go to the bullpen, and every now and then you find someone. If the bullpen is the biggest issue that they have going into next season and they start hitting the ball a bit, there's really no reason they can't be right there with the Tigers and Royals and Guardians. And who knows how far the White Sox are off, but at least they're interesting. They're young and interesting, even though they're not particularly good.
What do you think they will do? Do you think they'll sell off, or do they continue to build? Because they're not far. They're maybe 2 players away.
In my heart of hearts, I hope that they build. And the infusion of cash from these mystery partners who we don't know much about yet is supposed to get them closer to being solvent, or whatever phrase. I'm not a big financial guru, but getting them to where they can invest, maybe have a payroll of 160, 180, perish the thought, 200 million. Because with what they've shown in player development and player acquisition is enough to say, hey, let's add one more star player. We thought it was Carlos Correa. That didn't work out for whatever reason. If you add one more truly great player, or you develop one and sign a pitcher or whatever, I mean, they need one more piece. I don't know what that piece is. When I look at free agency, I don't know if I see that, is it bringing in Alex Bregman or someone like that? Like I'm just throwing a name out there. I don't know, but I will say this. If Carlos Correa, at his age, position, pedigree, and reputation, and the contract he signed, which ended up being significantly less than we all expected, if that doesn't work out, how can you ever sign a free agent and feel really, really good about it? Like, you got Carlos Correa, not even 30 yet at the time, still can play defensive short. Like, where was the strike against him outside of the ankle? Everything else was let's go. And the ankle, I mean, there's been issues, but it never got going around him. And it's like, okay, well, what happened? And if you can't feel good about signing a guy like that in free agency to a deal less than he should have gotten, free agency gets that much more scary as a proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the A's visit the Twins tomorrow. Last time they met was in June. And during that stretch, the A's lost their 19th of 20th game in game 3 of that series. Let's talk some baseball coming up next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you are calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on an MVP race. I'm riding high with the kid from Green Bay to win MVP, Jordan Love. He's a flyer, but look out. Would love to see the Niners and Raiders in the Super Bowl. Probably won't happen, but how about parlaying the two teams to win their division title? Talk about a payout. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Game 1 tomorrow, Joe Ryan for the Twins and Jacob Lopez, which most people probably don't know, has pitched 24 consecutive scoreless innings. It's a complete shock. An older rookie, 26, 27 years old. We picked him up in he was supposed to be the throw-in in the trade we got from Tampa Bay when we picked up Jeffrey Springs. What's the Twins roster look like right now? Any exciting prospects up, and what can we expect in this 3 games? I know it's Ryan. I think Ober's going in game 2, and then game 3 is undecided.
A lot of things are undecided. I think they're getting closer to giving Mick Abel a shot. He's been working on a sweeper in St. Paul, and I tell you what, it's nice to have your AAA affiliate that close. It really
no kidding,
is.
Huh? Yeah.
7, 8, 10 miles. You can ride the train back and forth if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. Luke Keeschel is the one you're going to want to watch out for, because
Luke Keeschel,
so he's kind of like what the Twins version of Nick Kurtz is, as far as like exciting rookie that has people talking. The big issue was he broke his forearm on a hit by pitch. Apparently, Kyle Hendricks throws hard enough to break someone's forearm. I didn't know that was the case. But fairly innocuous-looking hit by pitch early in the season. Keeschel I have to be careful not to call him Keuchel, like Dallas Keuchel, who was with the Twins last year. He was absolutely on fire, blazing hot, like first handful of games, gets hit, goes down, gets healthy, rehab, comes back, and he's been hitting like crazy again. He's batting second, third, fourth for this team. And it's a team with a lot of veteran guys. So to be hitting there is still impressive. And what I mean by a lot of veteran guys is guys who've been with the Twins a while: Ryan Jeffers, Matt Wallner, Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee. Not veterans in the MLB sense, but guys who've been in the organization and in the major leagues. So he's hitting ahead of guys like that. That's who I would be the most excited to see of the Twins players that maybe A's fans haven't seen much of. Royce Lewis seems to be turning around a little bit. Brooks Lee hit the Twins' first grand slam of the year off Chris Paddock on Sunday, which was a big deal. They were good buddies while Paddock was here. So he had a big smile on his face the rest of the game, which was pretty great to see. But
how's Buxton doing second half?
Tremendous.
He's having a hell of a year.
He's having an incredible year. He homered off Paddock in the 3rd inning, first pitch he saw. I think the first 2 pitches he saw on Sunday were a single and a homer. Closing in on a 900 OPS. He's going to be one of, I think, 5 Twins to go 2020 in the team's Minnesota history. He's having a fabulous season. Looks pretty good in center field, and he's been out there 75% of the time, which is for him pretty dang good thing. So, and that's a part of it too, why tearing down does not make any sense. They have enough offensive talent in youngsters. Byron Buxton is basically like the den father. He's not going anywhere. No trade clause, doesn't want to go anywhere. He's very happy in Minnesota. It would be doing a disservice to him to trade away Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan and start over when he has been fighting his you-know-what off to be healthy and good for this team.
Yes.
And he's in his early-ish 30s. To be good again in his mid-30s, unacceptable. So I firmly believe that the rest of this year they're playing hard. They're seeing who can do what, because next year, if they can piece together a good bullpen, they're still going to be a fine baseball team.
I think it's going to be a good series. A's are playing their best ball of the year. They're 14-8 in their last 22. We were hoping for the sweep against the Angels yesterday. Lost a heartbreaker in 10. But we're playing great ball, young. You know, you got your Nick Kurtz at first, fourth overall pick from last year. Jacob Lopez is expected to not Jacob Lopez. Jacob Wilson is expected to be back this week. Should be back tomorrow. He was just on a rehab assignment. Has played a couple of games. Zach Geloff may be back as well. Had a huge 2023. Got struggled early this year and last year, obviously. But he's hit 8 home runs in his last 6 games, I believe, in AAA Vegas. So we're young. We're playing energetic. It's a different feel right now. Obviously, everyone's Vegas still seems like it's 10 years away, even though it's in 2028. I think it's going to be a good series. I'm excited for tomorrow's matchup, Lopez and Ryan. I think that has potentially to be a really, really good pitcher's duel. And seeing if this anytime you're chasing history like Lopez, it might be a little too early. Still, 26 straight innings without allowing the run is pretty darn.
I want to make a call here, and I don't want it to blow up in my face. But Byron Buxton breaks up that with the first at bat of the first game. I'm going on a limb here. I gotta placate my Twins listeners who are hanging here. Can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Let's say 100% of the fan base with the A's when they were in Oakland. How would you break them up into went to another fan base, quit watching baseball altogether, followed the team to Sacramento? Like, how would you break that up? Because I'm fascinated to know how fractured. Like, I'm not fascinated, eager. I'm not committing Schadenfreude at your misfortune, but I want to know how it all kind of breaks out.
So here's the story of the A's moving has so many different levels to it. For one, you probably don't know, and probably your fan base doesn't know, that the lead negotiator for the city of Oakland was the first ever mayor recalled from the city and was indicted on federal charges. This is past that. So that kind of is a big, you did not know that. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. That's
a big deal. As far as how you look at the A's move, and was it really all ownership? Was ownership have their hand on a lot of things? Were they mute towards the public? Did they not communicate? Did they not spend? Did they not retain free agents? All true. Was the city of Oakland equally as bad? Yes, 100%. There were so many things the city of Oakland lied to the public about that I was on board with until I actually looked deep in. And again, that's one of the narratives. No one knows that. The lead negotiator of the city of Oakland was indicted on federal charges. The city of Oakland demanded $90 million for the A's to squat. I don't know if it was $60 million, for the A's to squat at the Coliseum for 3 years. And on top of that, they wanted the rights to the name Athletics. So the Athletics couldn't take the name. So for them to be in Sacramento, I hate it. But at one point, you're like, I mean, what choice did they have in a certain respect? So most of the fan base from Oakland in the Bay Area, I would say 90% of it wants nothing to do with the A's at all. They hate the Giants too. They want nothing to do with the Giants. So they haven't moved over to San Francisco and done that. Most of them, I would say, 8 to 9 out of 10 people that were fans are no longer watching baseball, which is too bad. And my big complaint about the media is not like, I'm not trying to change everybody's mind, but I am saying, hey, tell the full story. Tell the truth about the mayor and her indictment. Because for me, for somebody that didn't know that or wasn't aware that had to look up that information, that may change the mind of somebody saying, hey, okay, maybe it's not all, maybe he just didn't pick up and leave. Maybe there was more to it than that. So, and that's my complaint with regard to how the A's were covered. Just, hey, tell that. And you can still have your take about ownership, and most of that's true. But it's a fractured fan base. It doesn't have a fan base right now. And the problem is the A's made a big mistake by going to Sacramento and making a point not to take the Sacramento name. Stupid. Yeah. Beyond stupid. It shows how out of touch reality ownership was. That was dumb. So you can't blame the fans in Sacramento for not really like, hey, that's like kind of a slap in the face. And it's too close to Oakland, only about an hour and a half. Secondly, Oakland fans want nothing to do with them. Thirdly, Vegas is still 3 years away. So we literally don't have a fan base. It stinks. It's tough right now.
That's straight up.
So yeah, it sucks. It sucks. It's tough right now to be an A's fan. It's frustrating for sure. But the good part is we do have young talent. People are like, well, they're not going to retain them. Well, that's fine. Well, tomorrow's game will be fun. I'll worry about that in 6 years. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Predictions for the series.
I mean, I don't have any strong prediction one way or the other as far as who will take it, but I will say this. It's going to be not necessarily chippy, but young players who are trying to establish each other are going to be playing their butts off. And so no matter what happens, I think they're going to be hard-fought, competitive games because like you laid out, the Twins are built not only as a bunch of young guys trying to find their way, but they're literally playing for their big league futures, a lot of them, whether it's with the Twins or with someone else. And, you could call these meaningless games if you were talking about a player playing in an MVP race or a pennant race, but don't dare show yourself in a clubhouse and say that in front of players like this, because I tell you what, I've seen people do that. You do not want to call these guys games meaningless. They are far from meaningless.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be great baseball. I think it's going to be competitive baseball, and I'm looking forward to it, man. Brandon, thank you so much, man. Thank you for making Locked On A's and Locked On Twins your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB game night, every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB game night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts.